All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello all, thank you for being here. Wow, what a great day you have chosen to join us. Gotta say, we've got terrific guests today and some topics, we'll try to get through them all, that really run the gamut. We'll start in Hollywood and the situation that's going on there with a major labor moment, I think. We talked a bit about it yesterday with Sam Rubin from KTLA in Los Angeles. The writers and the actors, they have many of the same concerns, and then there are divergent concerns. But we have an actor with us in just a few moments who is very much affected by AI and by everything else, of course, that the After-SAG union is going after. But he's got an interesting story about how AI actually was involved in jacking his license, his likeness, I should say. We'll talk more about it, and I'll fill in some details. But when I say jacking his likeness, I mean they essentially grabbed this guy's look and then repurposed it for a different project than he was originally contracted for. But he'll tell us all those details. But that's only the beginning of the show. Then at the bottom of this first hour, we'll talk about the future of the GOP and how the GOP is being essentially infested by the hard right to the point that the future of that party may very well be determined by those that seem to be extremists by what we think of as traditional politics over the last couple of decades when it comes to GOP politics. So that's your first hour. In the second hour, former Federal Prosecutor David Katz joins us to talk about the coming Trump charges, the existing Trump charges, the calendar of legal Trump stuff that runs up against the calendar of campaign political Trump stuff. We have to talk about Trump simply because he does lead the Republican field. And he leads the indictment field, everybody. So congratulations on that. You know, that's a tough one.
Indictment score?
Yeah. Right. We'll check the indictment tote board maybe first of next week. But that is Kim. Kim is with us.
Kim, how are you?
It was very touch and go. I'll just give you 30 seconds on the fact that as late as 15 minutes ago, Kim had no power.
Yeah.
And so she said, hey, I've got no internet, got nothing. And I said, okay, well, then, we'll soldier on. But now she's back with us. So,
Kim, how are you?
Very good stuff.
I know we're chock full and we don't have a lot of time, but let me just take some time to say there was a bit of a tiff at my house this morning when the power went out, because I said, don't we have a generator? It remains in a box, right?
Oh, yeah.
He said, the husband, well, yes, we do have a generator, but it's really for a longer outage. You don't put gas in that. It's to power the refrigerator. It's to do all. It's not for like a 2-hour outage.
I see.
Because you'd have to drain the gas
Such a husband thing to say. Honey, of course we have it, but it's not designed for these particular circumstances we find ourselves in.
It's not to put me on the air when I need to be on. Then what's good is it?
That is really a great response. I have to remember that.
I'm telling you.
We have our own issues at my home. Sometimes I feel like I'm just the landlord and my tenant is my de facto wife who just every day comes in with, the front gate isn't working the way it's supposed to. It's not, honey. Can I? Mark, have you seen out back? No, what's the problem out back, honey? The plants. I don't know what he's doing with them, but they look like they're dying. All right, let me, So when... At least you have a real problem. The power's out. So,
well, I mean, if you're not going to use the generator, then why is it taking up space at my house?
Yeah, I hear you. All right. Welcome, everybody. Smash the like button like a boss. Do it now. Hit us with a thumbs up. That's how we work in this weird YouTube world. And I'll remind you that this show will start airing at 11 a.m. as opposed to starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on August 1st. So that change is coming. Please adjust your calendars accordingly. And now,
The Mark Thompson Show.
how about a welcome for an amazing actor? I was watching his demo reel. This guy is really good. I mean, a gifted actor, with real range. Erik Passoja, he's an actor, comedian. He's Yale educated. He's a black belt badass.
Yep.
You know him from The Flight Attendant, that series. Is that an HBO Max series?
Yeah, I think it is.
NCIS,
Mm-hmm.
Doom Patrol, SWAT. You've seen him playing everything from cops and detectives to perps.
Mm-hmm.
How about it for Erik Passoja? Yeah.
Mark, I love your voice. I want to take you to every sporting event I go to. Actually, how about this? Could you just come over and announce while I cook?
Wow, from you, dude. That's a lot. I would think we go.
Potatoes are going in the tray.
Will Erik get the potatoes out in time? Find out tonight. Erik, you are truly gifted, my friend. I really watched. I watched a demo reel of yours, and I saw the range as an actor. I can see why you work so much. This is a real moment for labor, I think. And it's an inflection moment for the studios as they rethink their business model. And they have to integrate those people who are creators, who contribute. I want to get to the AI in a moment, but first sort of set the stage, if you would, and tell me how this all affects you. I mean, this is why I think you are a special guest, because we have a guy who legitimately is not giving us a jetliner view of things. You are actually in it.
Yeah, well, for people who are not in the business, it's hard to understand sort of the delineation between star and person who works regularly, and then 97% of our membership at the union. Just know that over the past 2 years, I've done 3 recurring guest stars on TV show, recurring voiceover, 3 TV shows, recurring voiceover, 2 major video games, Diablo 4, which just came out, and the new one by Bethesda Software. I'm under NDA, go figure. And then foreign language dubbing. I do looping and dubbing. I do that. And I made a living to support my family. And just so you know, when I show up having 4 acting classes a week, constantly working on it, 10 to 12 auditions a week, voiceover, theatrical auditions. This is all I do, and it's what I love, and I care about it. I'm a member of the Actors Studio. So know that every time I get a job, I beat 1,500 people out for it. Who are, it's like the Olympics. It's like trying to get on.
Everybody's super talented also, right?
Right. Yeah. And obviously there's a range in talent, but really, how bad do you want it? So the question is, if we get a session fee, let's say you were paying me SAG scale. I don't know what the scale is, but let's say it's $1,000. Okay. And you looked at 1,499 other people for this interview, and you picked me, and you pay me scale. And you're going to show this to millions of people. Watch your show. I know, Mark, millions of people. So people, you're getting income from there. And during the interview, I dropped my phone and I realized that I have to get a new phone. And the session that you're going to continue making money off of has just been wasted for me, because I can't even afford to get a new phone, having beaten 1,499 people. So that's what scale has been for years. Now, I have a personal story that seems to have resonated with a lot of the membership and a lot of people outside. In 2014, and this directly relates to the SAG-AFTRA question, I worked on Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Activision. And I played a Belgian geneticist in a lot of scenes, several scenes. And I did mocap work, worked with Kevin Spacey, and I'm talking to him like this because I'm a Belgian geneticist.
And what is mocap work, if you can tell us?
Yeah, dots all over my face, like they did on Avatar. People might have seen the on-set pictures. So, and by the way, we shot on the set of Avatar. It's the same set. It had, I think, 54 cameras surrounding us. We had, and by the way, that's old technology now. So you know how fast that works.
Wow.
And I was compensated for the face scanning process to create a character and the acting work. But what happened next, and you see the picture in front of you, a friend called me after the game's release, because I was in the interstitials after you shoot everyone up. And they said, hey, my son just shot you. Well, it turns out my likeness was also used on the online PvP, a peer versus peer game. So players can shoot me in the face, blow me up, stab me, push me off a cliff, burn me alive, all while I scream and I just die in extreme violence. So this isn't a Belgian geneticist. This is a completely different character.
Now wait a minute. So the things that you just described, the reactions, the screaming, all of that, they generated that? Because you didn't do that as the Belgian geneticist.
No, and I do this all the time on video games. So when I'm contracted to do voice on video games, I play a character. And if you can kill my character, they put it all at the end of the day, and they have me do an hour of screaming and yelling and dying and all sorts of other things because they don't want to blow my voice out before my lines. And it goes in the audio. They hired someone else to do all that stuff. They pulled someone else's voice. I don't know if they pulled an amalgam of other people's dying voices in the game, but the voice is not mine. If you play my character, it's not my voice. So now, all I got was the original session fee. I had no say on how my likeness was used, or that look my face. It's one thing when I do voice. You can shoot someone who looks like me and burn me alive, and then you see me kill you in PvP. Now, I never gave my permission for that, but I did sign a contract saying, yes, you can use it whatever you want for the project. So the project to me versus the project to their lawyers is not something you really can sort out when you show up to the gig and you sign the paperwork. Now, let me just add, this game, 2014 Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, made more than Taylor Swift's new album 1989, Disney Pixar's Frozen, and Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy combined. Those were the top-selling album and the top 2 box office movies of 2014. Now, if Kevin Spacey had been in a movie that grossed over $1 billion, well, he never has, by the way, none of them. Imagine if I had scenes in a movie comparable with Kevin Spacey. We'd have negotiations, residuals, and you wouldn't be able to murder my likeness. So if you think producers are going to fairly handle AI without specific legal and contractual guidelines, think again. We have to revolutionize. And I heard sort of your idea on this. We actually have to revolutionize everything for AI and compensation in the digital age, is my opinion.
Well, I don't even have a notion as to how to approach this. How do you see the union making a proposal that would encompass some of the stuff that you're talking about? I mean, that's a compelling story you tell.
It's my job. Just so you know, I'm also a tech nerd. I just want you to understand that many, many years ago, one of the biggest actors in Hollywood used to wear a chicken suit outside of El Pollo Loco. His name is Brad Pitt. All right.
Is that right?
Yeah. He used to wear. Now, just think of it. You're not going to starve us out because most of us, I mean, if 80% don't get in health insurance, 80% are definitely working day jobs. So we're not. Is Netflix going to bartend? No, they're going to have to fire people. So we're going to wait this. I mean, if Brad Pitt was in a chicken suit, you understand what real talent and what really good looks had to do to get where he is. And all of us who care about that, we do that. So point being, it is incumbent upon us to actually redefine what compensation means. And I know that the producers want the status quo, but they're actually they're not changing the status quo based on their status quo changing. Their idea is we haven't really figured out how to monetize it yet. And let me just look at that. We haven't figured out how to monetize it yet. Our founding fathers said that. Jefferson was broke. He was in debt. He built Monticello, not with money, but with slaves. So if you don't know how to figure out how to monetize it yet, we didn't know how to monetize our country. So we had free labor for hundreds of years. You had individual damage, cultural damage, and now generational damage. Think of what you're doing to the workers of today if you're not paying us a living wage for our work. And that's what underlies everything. So my answer, because I have a tech business, is AI is here to stay. Prometheus has given us that fire. It's like saying, you know what? We do not need wheels. Or 100 years ago, we don't need sewing machines. Look, we're doing this. We've been doing this for hundreds of years. And there was a lot of feedback then. Well, they all lost work or learned how to use sewing machines. Well, right now, there are some jobs that are going to go away. There's some jobs that are going to stay. But what has to happen is we can't keep doing things on paper with AI out there. We actually have to include AI in what we're doing. And I'm actually running for a delegate for the SAG-AFTRA board this year because I'm an AI nerd and have been for years. And that's how I do tech as well. I can't talk about it right now. I can talk about it, one-to-one.
What kind of general, I mean, by the way, you'd be I'm glad you're running for it because you're clearly a knowledgeable, I like the fact that you're in the trenches, but you also have a knowledge of what is likely the future, I mean, through the technology. But what would likely be the kind of proposal that might include what AI and that scenario that you described that involved you is doing to the business? What kind of proposal might exist in the future?
All right. Well, what I would say, and I can boil it down to this and feel safe saying it, you need to combine two things. And this is a very overarching word, but we need to combine NFT, non-fungible tokens, identity tracking, with signal processing to catch cheaters. And
so the NFT part is Web3, sort of where you're on the blockchain and you can keep track of it. Is that what you mean when you say that? Or
I'm just going to say NFT. You can go where you want with that. Taking our likeness, making NFTs, and then catching cheaters. That's the really sort of broad overlook of it. But the point is, AI is here to stay. We use it every day. We're using AI right now to stay in focus on our cameras. I mean, everything is AI driven. It's not going away. And if you hold up a sign that says no AI, no matter what business you're in, you're not recognizing that. We are now in the tech survival of the fittest. So we need to use AI to help us, and AI is helping us.
The writers are proposing, as you're aware, limits on AI and AI involvement in the creative process. Mm-hmm. That I think it's a tough one but there are ways to check on if something was generated artificially. But putting that aside, this is interesting what you're saying. Hey, look, that horse is out of the barn. You may have to just simply integrate AI and make sure we're compensated fairly for the use of AI in the ways that it will likely evolve in our industry.
Right. Now look how AI is being used in the industry right now. I mean, let's look at Midjourney. If you look at Midjourney, it is a generative AI that creates images from noise. And they'll take 10,000 pictures of a cat or 1 million pictures of a cat, and it'll break them all down to noise. And when you say cat, draw me a cat, it'll reintegrate its own idea with some randomness and some chaos, style and chaos, to create a cat. If you say a green cat, it'll make a green cat because what it knows about green and cat, and it puts it all together in these images. We can also take your image, Mark, and my image, and feed it in there and saying a man walking across the street drinking water. And so it'll look a little like you and a little like me, and it'll be a man walking across drinking water. Now, what it did is it took our pixels and did that. That's a new phase for our business. And what the extras are complaining about right now is legitimate, which is they're showing up on a set and they're getting paid $110 a day. I don't know if people know, something like that. It's SAG scale for extra, and they're standing around all day. They're professionals. They come ready. They come dressed. Whenever someone wants them to go somewhere, they go there. They know how much to bug you. They know how much not to bug you. Some people do this for a living.
But they're treated awfully, though. You must admit, Erik. I mean, relative to everybody else. I mean, I've only done a few dozen projects or films and TV shows, but I always felt bad for the extras. They have them in a. Am I wrong? I mean, I feel as though, because I think I know where you're going, they're already, I don't think, treated so well. Well, they're aspiring actors and performers, right?
Yeah, nobody where there's a totem pole is treated well. And by the way, we're apes. We have totem poles. Look, the people who are now the producers may have worked in the mailroom at William Morris at some point. I don't know if you've ever seen Swimming with Sharks. Another Kevin Spacey project, by the way. Sure. I mean, the way they treat each other, the way they interact with each other. If you're in the mailroom, you are treated like dirt. You're treated worse than an extra. And they, of course, they believe, well, I worked 2 years in the mailroom. I did my dues. Anyway, wherever there's a totem pole, whether you're talking about, full on, again, slavery or simply a corporate structure with an org chart, there's someone at the bottom who makes sure that all the papers are Xerox, which, by the way, I did back in the 90s when I had a day job in New York. I was a temp. So I understand that. Yes, they're treated poorly. So let me go back.
Yes, please continue. I didn't mean to. Yeah.
No, the extras they do this work, and one day someone shows up and says, "Hey, can I scan you?" Now, there are a couple scenarios that happen. An actor goes, "Well, yeah, definitely. Of course. Yeah, sure. You're going to do this. Yeah, we want to get all your angles and stuff. We're shooting this movie." They scan the extra. And now, basically, from what I've told you, generative AI and also 3D, where they can map someone's face on a 3D character that walks across the street. A year later, that actor doesn't have a job because there's already a her walking across the street. So they've been getting $100 a day for their work. And now they get no dollars for their work, and they just got scanned for free. So I give you my analogy. If I give you a $100 bag of chips or the exact same bag of chips for free, which one are you going to take? Well, that's what the producers are doing. Because quite frankly, what does it take to tell your someone on your crew, "Hey, could you just ask these actors to come in the tent where I put the machine that scans you?" The other side of it, there are actually two more scenarios. The actor says no. And I've heard this story from fellow members. They get fired. They get released from the project. Or the third one is, "We're going to pay you $100 to scan you." So you get $100 for the day, and you get $100 for a scan. See, it's part of the same project. Oh, wow, I just showed up. I get an extra $100 to stand there. And then a year from now, you don't have a job.
That is clearly the next step. You can certainly see the way the extra world is going to change dramatically, because that's so easy. And maybe it's all as easy as that. That's the one that's easy to get your head around, maybe. I guess it might be the way to put it.
Here's the harder one. Deep fake Tom Cruise. Have you seen deep fake Tom Cruise?
It's crazy, eerie, really.
I mean, Tom Cruise did not give his permission to do that. Now, you can see it in a fun way, right? I mean, it's fun. From what I hear, CAA just invested $20 million in that company. I don't know if that's true, but I think they also rep Tom Cruise, which is a little weird. All right. Again, we're in that weird area. Let's put that aside and let's go in the middle and let's take a look at Worm GPT. Have you heard of Worm GPT?
No.
This came out in the news in PC Magazine 2 days ago. Imagine an evil chat GPT created by hackers. And you can ask this Worm GPT all sorts of questions like, all right, I want to write a phishing letter for this company to see if I can, do this, that, and the other. And so imagine, there are people out there who said, well, information is free. This is just generative AI. Everybody should know. But from local to city to state to national to internationally, people are getting mobilized because at some point, some bad actor is going to have Tom Cruise deep faked into doing a crime. He's going to have, I've already heard of people who are in pornography right now. So at this point, we're at the cusp. Can you imagine 10 years from now when we go, hey, AI, here's the story. I want you to put Brad Pitt in a chicken outfit, walking onto a movie set with Tom Cruise, scaring the hell out of him, and then taking off his chicken head and going, hey, Tom. All right. It will do that for you. And the question is, who owns Brad Pitt's and Tom Cruise faces? Now, there are places now that will let you license that stuff. There are companies right now who are getting into that, because if you look at the movie industry, you're a $100 million film, and you're hiring Brad Pitt, and there's some crazy ass stunts. So Brad Pitt has a company that has all this stuff, and they just send them the assets. Sure. So and they keep it scanned. They keep up with the new technology. Brad and his agent, they just have that company do it. Right now, the producers are having to go to ILM and pay a whole lot of money for that stuff, and it only belongs to that production, and it may not quite be what Brad wants. These companies have what Brad wants, and they just send it over in the production company. But how about me? Right. Can I afford that? Because I just dropped my phone, for example, in your session, and I'm gonna spend, I don't know, $200,000 to get my face scanned. I'm not protected, and the stars are. And again, totem pole. It's a
totem pole, and I think pyramid. The people at the top, the Brad Pitts of the world, there are only a handful. And in the middle and base, there are many more. I mean, you're lucky in a way. Your talents have been recognized, and you're a working performer. There are many others who are struggling, who, as you say, they're out there. Maybe they're not as talented. Maybe they haven't gotten a break, whatever. But now, and boy, you really put it in. It's both a perplexing context, and it's also a confusing kind of potential that this AI has. I'm wondering how you boil that down. Like when we started this conversation, how you boil it down to a proposal is what I was going to say. When we started this conversation, we only have another minute or two left, but I was thinking, well, maybe you could make whatever AI was involved with Erik's project specific to that project, or a list of projects, or in other words, so you as a performer at least know it's specific to that project. What you've described is a kind of AI. How do you cast a wide enough net to handle a lot of the stuff that you've talked about?
Here's my answer. You use AI. It's really simple. And it will actually simplify a lot of this process. My point being that there are actors on all levels in terms of their commitment. I train like an Olympic athlete. Like when I'm not doing this, I'm going to be marching. When I'm not doing that, I have this movie I'm writing, and I got this thing I'm editing, and like constantly, and I'm going to 4 classes a week. There are other people who are like, yeah, I've got, I drive a cab and I do this and I show up for this, and it doesn't matter. All these people not only need to be compensated, but they also actually need to be protected by using numbers and saying, I may not have the budget to do this, but all of us collectively can create something. And in the meantime, we're not playing ball. And that's only one sector. We now have streaming and dealing with shows that are now showing like streaming that's now showing commercials, AVOD, and also other things. These are other conversations. My service will definitely be in the video gaming and AI side, because I've done 20 video games. My projects have made more than twice as much money as Jennifer Lawrence's projects.
Those projects, video game projects, are buyouts. You perform, they give you a flat fee. There's no residual. There's no
session rate. I think it's $1,100 a day right now.
Wow. Yeah.
And by the way, I just did Diablo 4. I did 2 sessions, and they were forced to pay me by contract a $200 check when the game was launched. The game was launched. I'm still waiting for a $200 check. They made $666 million opening weekend.
Look at this. SF Tesla says, once trained by a real actor, the AI can tweak out a new persona.
No.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. Yeah.
Can't happen.
Oh, it can't?
Because I need something. If I'm in a scene with you, I need something. You need something. Computers can't need. And all we care about is to see if I'm going to get it from you and you're going to get it from me. And computers don't know what it's like to stand in the sand. They don't know what it's like to really need something. So you're going to give us a vanilla facsimile, and that's where Hollywood is going to go. And then all the other countries will beat us out because they'll make real movies. You tell me what you want.
Oh, that's fascinating. What a great way to finish, too. Look, I just see you all as so immensely talented, and what you do is so hard. I mean, we talked about this yesterday on the air, the fact that, there's this notion of Hollywood actor, your craft services, they send a town car for you or whatever, and it's hard work. What you do is hard work.
Do you know what I do in that town car? I'm reading the script. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to cry. I have to burst into tears. And they might have to do it 15 times. We're not just sitting there, we might,
right.
And that's the thing. And the other part of it is it's magic. If it looked hard, you wouldn't want to watch that person.
Right.
When Jordan did a dunk, it's just like, well, you try that.
Yeah. Great parallel. Come visit again. Good luck. It looks like it may be a while, huh, Erik?
I think
the strike.
I think if and I'm just going to say this with love, if the producers can just say this is all changing, and if you want to play ball with the actors, we both need to acknowledge that this is all changing and create a paradigm that works for both of us. Because if we don't, you're going to fall. Yeah. And we don't want you to fall, because I love Netflix. I love HBO. I love Hulu. I love Disney. I'm entertained. I turn that stuff on all the time. But you have to understand that you can't screw your workers, because it's happening everywhere now, and you'll be part of the problem.
It's not a good look for the studios right now. That's for sure.
Well, they say they can starve us out. I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, that's also not a good look. I mean, to come forward with that, we're planning, once they start losing some houses, then they'll come to the table. I mean, please. Right now, there's no negotiation.
I can sell my house and live in Atlanta way cheaper. And by the way, only when I'm working would I fly to LA. It's a new world.
Erik, good luck. Come back and visit and bring us good news. Thanks, man. Erik Passoja. Great stuff. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, really something. Kim, give me a little news, and then I want to talk about the future of the GOP. Can we do that?
I'll give you some news.
He's terrific. Smash the like button like a boss, and we'll keep the train running on time. Mark Thompson Show.
I've told you it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
No.
What's happening?
Theme. Come on. What's going on here? I'm begging you. Thank you. It was all going so well until then.
Yeah. I'm Kim McAllister on this chock-full Mark Thompson Show. Let's start with the former president, Trump. He has until today to notify the Justice Department if he wants to appear in front of a federal grand jury. Trump received a target letter, of course, regarding an investigation into his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. A former Trump aide is scheduled to testify today, but the former president is not expected to respond to the target letter. Crickets. A Democratic presidential hopeful, who suggested COVID-19 could have been ethnically targeted, says free speech is vital to democracy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testifying today during a House hearing on government censorship online. Kennedy refuted claims of being anti-Semitic after he was seen on video saying COVID was engineered so it wouldn't affect Ashkenazi Jews as well as Chinese people. Get some interesting thoughts there, Bella. The House Oversight Committee is scheduling a hearing next week on unidentified aerial phenomena. We used to call it UFOs, now we call it UAPs. Witnesses include Navy pilots who have reported multiple encounters with UAPs. Citing lack of information from the government on UAPs, lawmakers say next week's hearing will focus on transparency. We'll see what we find out. You're trying to buy a home, you may have noticed this already, but pre-owned homes are kind of in a slump. New homes, though, making a pretty big jump. The National Association of Realtors says sales of pre-owned homes last month dropped 18.9% from June of 2022. That's the biggest drop since 2009. D.R. Horton, the nation's largest home builder, is reporting a 37% jump in new home sales over this time last year. And if you're headed for a show, well, it's good. The lights will stay lit on Broadway. The union representing Broadway stagehands reached a tentative contract agreement with the Broadway League and Disney Theatrical Productions. That happened this morning. The agreement avoided a third strike in the entertainment world, with Hollywood actors and writers already picketing. Investigation that's kind of a long time coming. The home that Las Vegas police searched this week in connection with the 1996 murder of rapper Tupac Shakur is tied with the wife of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. Keefe D, he was known by. Voter and marriage records show Paula Clemens, Davis's wife, lives at this home in Henderson, Nevada. Davis is a reputed gang member whose nephew has previously been accused of being the gunman who killed Shakur near the Las Vegas Strip. So detectives searched the home Monday. They haven't exactly said why yet. In both 2018, a Netflix documentary, and a book he published in 2019, Davis alluded to being in the car with the shooter who killed Tupac Shakur. Let's move on to this California school district. This has been in the news. Temecula Valley Unified, they are facing a hefty bill for rejecting new textbooks. Temecula Valley will be fined $1.5 million for breaking the law by not updating the social studies curriculum. Students are forced to use a textbook from 17 years ago, and that is why the state stepped in. Governor Gavin Newsom says there's a contract to secure new books, and they should be delivered soon. Elementary schools start next month. And yeah, I told you it was going to pop, and pop it did. That's right. California proving for at least one person that it pays to play. Someone here bought the winning ticket in last night's $1 billion Powerball drawing, scoring the 7th highest jackpot ever. Now all eyes are on the Los Angeles mini market where this was sold, and that owner gets a chunk of money too. You don't know exactly yet. I don't think the person has come forward. And even if it's not you, don't toss the tickets, because several people came really close, matching 5 numbers to win almost $450,000. Those were sold in Los Angeles, La Puente, Northridge, Hayward, South Lake Tahoe, Santa Clara, and San Francisco. So a lot of people get a little bit of something. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Why are you yelling?
That's not fake. That's real.
It's fantastic.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Oh, yeah. A lot of fun. Got my new, excuse me, credibility glasses on today. So that's sort
Look
of
at you.
Yeah, kind of a wider. Yeah. Coming up, we have Alexander Bolton from the Hill. He'll talk about the future of the GOP. Although I think we didn't send him a link, is what I
did. Pretty sure I did. But I'll try again.
Yeah. I just got an email saying he did not receive a link. So maybe try it again. I'm hoping that we get him on. Essentially, that's a question of the GOP future. He wrote a piece for The Hill on that. And that pertains to essentially the way in which the GOP increasingly seems to be dictated to by an extreme wing of that party. Might that extreme wing dictate the future of that party? I mean, certainly if I told you that the dominant movement in America would be the, extreme right that would have a cult of worship around, a failed businessman who essentially reconstituted himself around a reputation built on a TV show that played him off as a billionaire. It's a plot out of a novel, but it happened. So there are more and more Republican senators now and Congress people that are worried about this conservative populism that was essentially reflected in the message that failed businessman, Donald Trump, was promulgating during his first run, right? He was stumping with a populist message. It's a tried and true way to gain power. Kim, will you be in touch with him and see if we can...
Yep, I just forwarded him another link, so we'll see. Okay,
good. Anyway, I think that's intriguing. Reaction to Erik. I found the notion of AI sort of infiltrating every aspect of our lives to be so indisputably clear that it leaves you wondering how you can possibly wrangle it. That was my thing as I'm talking. I'm like, God, I don't know what. That's why I kept saying, well, what would your proposal be? What would be? Put some specifics on this big ask. We've got to somehow wrangle this thing. And I think it's difficult. I think it's really difficult. But as he said, you'll end up with tepid performances, tepid scripts, nothing standout. Although I've talked to people in the music industry, and I think some of this stuff has been pretty well reported as well, where AI has written music of one sort or another, write this in the style of Drake.
Sure.
And it actually isn't bad, is what the music people tell me. These are people in the industry.
Yeah.
So maybe when we say tepid, it might be tepid now, but AI is going to get better, and it will all be pretty good after a while.
You just hear these stories
It's always learning, right?
It's always learning, exactly.
But you hear stories of these actors who I think we were talking about in yesterday that was it Mandy, I forget her last name.
Mandy Moore.
Mandy Moore. She's in This Is Us. She receives checks for like a penny, 27 cents for This Is Us. You have two actresses from Orange is the New Black who are getting checks for $20 for their work. It's just, it seems, it's so contrary to what we think of these people who make it big and make it into these shows, and you feel like, they should, save all that money they're getting, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode, and this is great for them. And then you turn around and it's like, that's all they got paid for that? It's not what we think it is, I think is what I'm trying to say.
The whole world of show business is not kind of what we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I asked Sam Rubin yesterday about the image, and I even touched on it a bit with Erik. The image the public has is, it's a pretty glam life. You know what I mean? Because that's the part of it that we see.
Yeah.
But the reality is, as he suggested, you're working hard. Now, he's a successful guy, but, God, he seems like he's got a pretty rough schedule of, maintaining that degree of excellence, Anyway, I will just segue quickly to the fact that Tony, who joins us today, is at Comic-Con.
An undisclosed location.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, look at Tony's in like this.
I'm in a warehouse.
He's in a warehouse
right
on the outskirts of town.
Pretty much.
And yesterday was the first night of Comic-Con, I think.
It's preview night. Today's the first day. It's actually going on right now. But I'm here.
That's pretty cool that you're here, buddy.
Thanks, Tony.
I don't think he was planning on being here. I think
No.
somehow. You got an email or you got a text or what happened?
Your texts are like, I'm the only one going to be on. This is Kim has power.
I don't think I said it like that, but all right. I mean, it's fine. I mean, my God.
I'll find it.
I was happy to go ahead. Find it. Let's take this to the mat. I don't think I had an exclamation point on it or anything. Oh my God, I'm the only one on. Are you kidding?
No.
I love it when I'm the only one on.
I know. I'm joking.
My God. As far as I'm concerned, all of you people are in my way.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big
Let
deal.
me talk. Ron Cook says you have to develop your own content and develop your own studio, just like the Mark Thompson show. Have to write your own ticket. Content is king going forward. Ron Cook said it. Ron Cook for president.
I'm thinking about that my email, maybe the guest doesn't know it's coming from me, Alex Bolton. And so maybe mine's going to spam. So maybe it needs to come from you. I don't know. Maybe I sent the link 3 times now. So I don't know. I will say though, with what Ron just said, yes, that's true that, I guess no one except you guys can fire us, right? Because we're here as long as you're here supporting us. But also you're still kind of beholden to YouTube and all their rules, and they're not paying very much. Like it's not a lot of money. So we're talking like, a couple dollars here and there. So I don't know. I don't think YouTube is necessarily fair to people who are on its platform either.
That's certainly true. You can say that we're creators, and we are, but the reality is we have a boss. That boss is YouTube. YouTube can take whatever chunk of this show that they want to take because they're providing the platform. They can demonetize in any way that they want. We've seen how they demonetized this show just because the AI screwed up, A lot of thanks to you, Tony. From Sayo, we keep losing Tony, says Wes. Yeah, we lose him to everything. Thanks, Tony, says Jim Slayton. Thoughts for Jim Slayton? I think he's going for medical treatments.
Oh, Jim, I hope everything goes well.
Yeah,
Good
love
you.
our Jim Slayton. Thank you. And you know, I think it's true that we make our own lemonade here.
Yeah.
But the truth is that we give a lot to the man, and that's just the price you pay. Literally, the price you pay. Well, I'm going to read a little bit of Alexander Bolton's column, and you'll be able to at least get a feel for this because I think it's worth reflecting on. I don't know what happened. I do have a phone number for him, Kim, that I won't mention on the air.
Why don't you forward it to me, and I'll read this text from Luis while you do that. With a $9.99 donation, Luis says, Tony does it all, producing, tech, reporting from the field. Buy yourself some cosplay stuff. Can I get a big thanks, Tony?
Yeah, what about that? Yeah, Tony is the man.
If you want to have
Tony.
a phone call with him, I'm set up to be able to take phone calls here if you want to do it through your phone.
So you'd have to give him Tony's number. We're running out, we're losing daylight, as they say in the show. I don't know.
Too, but we'll see.
Yeah. Gail Guthrie, the world is a vampire. That's right. Sucking us blind, Gail. That's exactly right.
Thanks, Tony.
By the way, big shout out to both Luis and Gail.
Big shout out.
Luis is a regular and very, very cool supporter of the show. Gail, also regular. I believe she's HOF, isn't she, Kim? I think Gail is Hall of Famer. So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gail. Always appreciate it. We are crowdfunded, so love the super stickers and super chats. So here is a little something of what Alexander had written and appears in the Hill, and we'll give him a little love because he is ready to go. Just for some reason, he doesn't have our link. I don't really understand why. But let me share a little bit of what he's written, and you'll get a sense for what's up.
The Mark Thompson Show.
GOP senators rattled by radical conservative populism is the headline. Republican senators say that they're worried that conservative populism, though always a part of the GOP, is beginning to take over the party and becoming more radical and threatening to cause them significant political problems heading into the 2024 election. Let me step out of this, sharing this with you, just to say it wouldn't be causing them significant political problems heading into the 2024 election if they did what? If they reflected the wants and desires of the people, of the voter. You can take that down now, Tony. I don't think I'll even leave it up there the whole time. But my point in mentioning that is I always see voting, the virtue in voting is right, it's the people's voice. And so in a democratic republic, you vote for those that will then represent your voice in some kind of legislative body. So when you say that the GOP is beginning to become worried about political problems heading into the 2024 election because of the radical wing threatening to take over, you're essentially acknowledging the fact that those views are not in line with the people and the average voter. GOP senators are saying they're being increasingly confronted by constituents, here you go, who buy into discredited conspiracy theories. Well, this is a different point. Such as the claim that Democrats stole the 2020 presidential election or that federal agents incited the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Growing distrust with government institutions, from the FBI, CIA, and Department of Justice to the Centers of Disease Control and National Institutes of Health, make it more difficult for Republican lawmakers to govern. Republican senators believe their party has a good chance to take back control of the White House and the Senate, given President Biden's low approval ratings and the favorable map of Senate seats up for re-election. But they regularly face political headaches caused by populist members of their party who say the rest of the GOP is out of step with mainstream America. It's interesting, this piece talks about Lisa Murkowski. He cites Lisa Murkowski here. She says, now our party is becoming known as a group of kind of extremist, populist, over-the-top people where no one is taking us seriously anymore. I mean, this is the danger. You've got Alexander ready to go? That was great. It only takes us 40 minutes to vector in the guest that we had. Sorry for the delay, but how about it? As I mentioned, I just read you a little bit from his column. From the Hill, Alexander Bolton, everybody. Yeah. Hi, Alexander Bolton. I'm sorry for the delay. Can you hear me, or is yeah?
I can't hear audio right now.
No, he cannot. Yeah, he had that look that he couldn't hear it. Tony, can you help him in some way?
Let's see what we can do.
Okay.
I'll put him backstage.
Okay.
Just Alex, when you can hear us, give us a thumbs up. He can't hear us.
Okay, yeah, he can't hear that, but that's a good plan. I'll just continue. You have people who felt some allegiance to the party that are now really questioning, why am I in the party? This is from Lisa Murkowski, a Republican. I think it's going to get even more interesting as we move closer to the elections and we start going through some of these primary debates. Quote, is it going to be a situation of who can be more outlandish than the other, she asked. Some Senate Republicans worry the populist wins are downgrading their chances of picking up seats in 2024. There are an astonishing number of people in my state, she says. Oh, this is a different Republican senator, who believe the election was stolen. And the Republican senator requests anonymity, and you see why. There's a weird thing going on in the Republican Party, and you see it. I'll just give you the extreme example with Donald Trump. It's almost cartoonish. They have a notion about having to, if not pledge a fealty to Trump, to certainly not criticize Trump, right? You know, to wear the MAGA hat, and then, you know, when they get off stage, take off the MAGA hat and go, what a joker, yo-yo loser Trump is. So there's this dichotomy that exists within a lot of these Republican legislators. Even as they are questioned about things like the last election, they have to find all these different ways to evade anything that would be critical. Look at that whole Republican field. Apart from Chris Christie, even Mike Pence is like tiptoeing around criticizing a president who led an insurrection during which they tried to kill this guy. I mean, my God, you can't. It's quite remarkable. So, but you see the problem. I mean, and that's what I liked about Alexander's piece, and hopefully we'll get him on. But if not, he'll be on in the future.
Yeah.
He does a nice job of sort of summarizing this situation. What's that, Kim?
Yeah, I was agreeing with you. And I was also applauding the yo-yo loser. Joker yo-yo loser. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that, anyway, Tony's working with him right now.
Yeah.
So it goes on. Another Republican senator says it makes it a lot more difficult to govern. It makes it difficult to talk to constituents. You have this. What I'm concerned with is that this growing wave of populism is growing. You know, that you have more and more people who are questioning those institutions, which I believe, and as you know, if you've heard me, should be questioned on some level, but that level should be on facts, not on concocted crap.
I haven't seen any information as to whether the Republican Party is losing members. It doesn't seem like it. It still seems like the nation is very split. But, you know, if the Democrats, I would like to think this of myself, were doing this type of thing, or were saying outlandish things, or were behaving in a way that isn't consistent with my values, if I were very religious or what have you, then I would probably leave the party. But I don't necessarily see that happening here.
We'll ask him about that too. You know, now you'll just meet him. This is going to be a meet and farewell kind of thing to Alexander, because we're so now far behind. I'm sorry, Alexander. Really, this is our fault, and I blame Kim. Really, if I can just say that. Yeah, I blame her.
Sorry, Alexander.
Alex, welcome, Alex Bolton. I love your piece on the on this issue in the Hill. the fact that GOP senators are worried about this conservative populism that seems to be taking over their party. Can you take us, because I was just reading through the piece for the audience, can you take us to the election? Can we fast forward there a little bit on how this might manifest itself in the coming election? They had hopes to, as I was saying, and I'm just reading from your piece, gain the White House, regain the Senate. Speak to that, if you would, please.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is that the Republican base is really entranced with this this populism, this conservative populism, and I think it can fairly be called a radical conservative populism. But it doesn't appear that, or it seems unlikely that this is going to, be all that popular with independent voters, with centrists, even with some moderate Republicans. And the whole Democratic strategy going into 2024 is to portray the Republican Party as extremist. And if Donald Trump is the nominee, I think they feel that they can do that quite effectively. And even if Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is the nominee, who's kind of running as a Trump light candidate, I think Democrats feel that they have some, that they have a good shot at doing that as well, painting the Republicans as extremist. And the critical element here are the suburban women voters. That's the portion of the electorate that at least Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell has identified as critical. You've got to win them over. They were turned off in the 2020 election. They were turned off in the 2022 election, and as a result, Republicans didn't do that well, or didn't do as well as expected. So it's this conservative populism. While the core hardcore Republican base voters love it, they like talking about stolen election theory and that January 6th was a CIA orchestrated thing, or that the FBI is full of deep state radicals and it needs to be defunded. I mean, that may sound good on conservative talk radio. It doesn't play to a broader electorate. Makes it tough to win states even like Montana or Ohio, which are Republican leaning.
Speak to the Tuberville stuff, where he's essentially blocking all of these confirmations, and how that ripple effect is manifested in political terms.
Well, I think the blocking of the military promotions in the Senate, I'm not sure how broad, how visible that is to the broader electorate, but I do think that it's very dangerous for that Republicans view as very dangerous, is that when Tommy Tuberville gets on CNN with Caitlin Collins and defends white nationalists serving in the U.S. military, and then when Caitlin Collins says white nationalism, that's a racist creed, and he says, well, that's some people's opinion, that then becomes that's very extreme language, and that's stuff that kind of language can really be used to paint the broader Republican Party as completely out of step with the American mainstream. And that's why you had, for instance, the day after Tuberville made those comments, you had Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, denouncing white supremacy. Now, he used slightly different terminology, but he said, I denounce white supremacy. Well, I'm paraphrasing. He says white supremacy has no place in our country or the Republican Party. And so that was a clear, I think, response to Tuberville. And, it's not just Tuberville, but for instance, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, two members of the House. This is my story. Last year, they attended a white nationalist event, and that was something that Senate Republican Mitt Romney, who was, of course, the Republican nominee in 2012, he called them "quote unquote" morons for doing that. So I think what is especially dangerous for Republicans is when this conservative populism starts to flirt with white nationalism, white supremacy. Then that really, I think, is something that becomes politically radioactive.
That's really interesting that you. It makes perfect sense that the actual X's and O's, the blocking and tackling of politics on Capitol Hill with Tuberville, but it doesn't move the meter much. But those high-profile white nationalist comments, that's something that does get out there. So the media messaging, or the messaging generally to the public, what lands with the public, if you want to think of it that way, is this stuff. It's funny. It took your piece to remind me that one of the first pieces of business that was introduced by the new GOP House was the Boebert, attempted impeachment of Joe Biden. She tried to author essentially the impeachment of the President Biden. And you in other words, political recriminations, seem to be top of the agenda as opposed to any kind of positive legislative stuff. But so in the context of what I was just saying, does the public remember that, or do they need, Alex Bolton's column in the Hill to remind them of it?
Well, I think, often in politics, voters will have an impression of the parties and the candidates, and, they may not remember the details and the storylines and all the facts, et cetera, but they will form an impression and they'll vote on the basis of that impression. And I think that really what's a danger right now for the Republican Party is that it is, it may be painted or it may be characterized effectively to voters as kind of a destabilizing force in America. When you have people talking about defunding the DOJ or the FBI, or they're raising, concerns and conspiracies about the NIH, National Institutes of Health, or the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. When you're talking about impeaching, the president on very flimsy grounds. When you're talking about, refusing to recognize the results of the 2020 election, or even in the case of Arizona, where you had Carrie Lake running for governor, she's refusing to recognize the results of the 2022 gubernatorial election in that state. These things are destabilizing, or at least can be characterized as fundamentally destabilizing to the country. And it's not just Democrats saying that. Based on my story was talking to Senate Republicans who they themselves are concerned because they see this as destabilizing. They see it as making it tougher to govern. And, at the end of the day, Americans don't spend that much time thinking about politics. Yeah, there are political junkies who, maybe watch this show, for instance, but most Americans don't think that much about politics. But what what gives them a queasy feeling is this idea that, that American politics are becoming so dysfunctional that's destabilizing, that it can hurt their futures, it can hurt their job security, their family security, just the fabric of American life. And I think that is, some of the rhetoric and kind of populism in the Republican Party or on the right is starting to get worrisome, not just for independents and Democrats, but even for some Republicans who've been in the party in some cases for decades. I mean, they're true blue rock rib Republicans, but when when it starts to get into these kind of outlandish theories of the FBI or the CIA somehow was orchestrating the violence on January 6th, or that the 2020 election was stolen, those are things that are just so they go beyond polarizing. They're destabilizing, and I think I don't think anyone's taking. It's not just Democratic rhetoric that America's democracy is at stake. I think there's some Republicans who, at least privately, fear the same as well. Now, not many of them are willing to speak out about it publicly. I mean, the one senator I did quote on the record was Lisa Murkowski, and she said that she encounters longtime Republicans who wonder how they can stay in the party as it gets increasingly outlandish. And so, I think that's why some Republicans, like, for instance, John Thune and Mike Rounds, are endorsing Tim Scott. They see him as a traditional Republican, a guy who's a unifying force in politics, who could win the White House if he ran against Biden, who could bring the country together. Unfortunately, Tim Scott's, not getting much traction in the polls. Republican primary voters are, they're more looking for the culture wars. They're looking for someone, whether it's Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump, who's going to take it to liberals. They think the country's is liberalizing far too fast. They don't like what's happening culturally. They're angry that Bud Light has a spokesperson who's transgender. They feel that this is the country is falling apart, and they want a fighter who's going to take it to their perceived enemies. So you really have, it's incredible tension right now within the Republican Party.
That's just so well said. I think there's a quality to Trump's success and the success of some of these other GOP high-profile members of that party that is associated with owning the libs. They want whoever owns them best is sort of their guy, generically their guy. But look, loved your piece, and for just the reasons that we were kind of talking about, because you do, again, Murkowski is the only one who's on the record with her name, but you do quote and speak to a lot of GOP senators who are concerned about this radical conservative populism. So we'll link to your piece in our description, the piece from Alexander Bolton in the Hill, and the next time we have you on, and I hope you will be on, we'll keep it it'll be smooth, kid. I promise you. You'll get the link the night before. We'll make sure everything is great. But really glad we had a few minutes to go over things. Thank you so much, Alex Bolton.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Alex Bolton, everybody. Good stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Can you, you'll take care of that link, won't you, Tony? Make sure that everybody can see his piece.
It's in chat,
really cool.
And it'll be in the description after we're done today.
All right. Very, very cool. Tony, beaming in from Comic-Con, everybody.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. The deal will be, we'll talk to David Katz. We'll do a supersized news bottom of this hour after Katz. He is the former federal prosecutor. Now he works on the defense side of the table. Want to talk to him about all things happening legally. Boy, it's a big week already. It was a big week by Monday when Trump announced that he had received that indictment letter, the target letter. Anyway, how about it for the great David Katz, everyone? Well, the indictments are stacking up, David Katz. Hello. How are you, sir?
Good to see you.
Yeah. I guess the indictments are coming. I mean, they're stacking up. I say it that way. The calendar is certainly getting busy for Donald Trump. If these indictments come to pass, it's going to run right up against the political calendar. Will any first set us the state of the state, and then I'm going to ask you about if any of this stuff is actually going to get into a courtroom before the election. Go ahead, please.
Well, I don't think that the two federal cases are going to be tried before November 2024. I think the case down in the Southern District of Florida, you remember the special counsel decided, I believe, in an unforced error to bring it down there. I think he was bending over backwards to be fair to Trump. He took a 1 in 3 chance that it would go to Judge Cannon. It has gone to Judge Cannon. And the idea that she's really going to put the pedal to the metal to do everything she can to ensure that this case goes to trial, come what may, before the November 2024 election. Number one, I don't believe that that's her state of mind. To the extent you can know someone's state of mind, I say that because she was handpicked by Trump. He ran down the road to get her on the search warrant case. She made 2 huge errors, unprecedented in the search warrant case. She was overruled and really excoriated by the 11th Circuit, which is not only very conservative, maybe the most conservative appeals court in the country, but also had 2 Trump members on the 3-judge court that unanimously both times overruled her. So I don't see that happening. And even if they had brought the case in D.C. or brought it in front of what I consider the fairest judge in America, I believe there really are some complex issues in that case that are time consuming. And especially with her, if she rules against the government has a right to appeal many of her rulings. Let me give you one example. I believe that she is going to rehear the issue of whether the crime fraud exception applies or not. That was decided ex parte, Mark, in camera without the defense being able to participate. Now, a fair-minded judge is supposed to anticipate the defense arguments, but everyone says, come on, that's not due process. A full and fair opportunity to be heard is not to have a judge think of what good arguments you would have made contrary to what the government's saying, with the government being the only one who has the floor, and them getting a finding by a judge that this particular lawyer, remember Corcoran, that he was just a pawn, that he was criminally acting for Trump, that Trump's intent was to use him as a criminal pawn. He's got a right, Trump, to tell the judge, hey, wait a second, I want a full and fair hearing. I want to be heard. He wasn't being used as a pawn, and therefore he shouldn't have been allowed to testify. None of his records should have been admitted in this case, and every fruit of that is tainted. All of that is what we call the fruit of the poisonous tree. So everything that flowed from his testimony and having his attorney-client records, since there was no crime fraud exception, now if she so holds, that will be breathtaking because it'll change the case a lot. Remember, one of the reasons that they know that he was monkeying around with those records and that his valet was moving them and that allegedly lied to the authorities and obstructed justice, the valet did, along with Trump, is because the lawyer says, I was given 300 boxes and told this is everything what's in this room. And in fact, another 200 or so boxes had been moved out of the room. The lawyer was never told that. And then the lawyer explains all the things that happened with him and Trump. If you exclude all of that and all the files from that, that would have a real difference in the quantum of evidence. The government would have to appeal that. And guess what? That's time consuming. That delays the trial on top of all this national security stuff. Trump's funniest argument yet, it's not funny because, he gets himself in these situations that imperil our democracy and our national secrets. But you have to sort of roll your eyes. Why do we need a protective order? Why are we saying any of this stuff is national security? I declassified it all. But of course, his lawyers won't say that in court because they're worried about getting sanctioned because there's no evidence that Trump declassified it all. But this is the level of problems that they've already started to have with the classified records part of the case, which is why I said the other day when I was on your show last week that I thought there's a real possibility that they'll try the valet Nauta ahead and sever his case and try him because he has far fewer issues and counts against him. Now, I didn't answer your question, Mark. I'm sorry. What had you asked me?
Well, I'm going to come back to my question. We'll re-ask it, but I just wanted to, because you made me think of this in your comments just a moment ago. You made me remember that, this is like years ago when they moved the OJ trial to downtown because they wanted it to seem as though, was it Gil Garcetti, wanted to seem as though it would be a more objective jury as opposed to an all-white jury or predominantly white jury in Santa Monica, California, closer to where the crime actually happened, and how that likely backfired, and how the excruciating bend over backwards thing that Jack Smith is doing, and then it's same as that OJ thing, moving it to Florida when you could have brought the case into Washington, is to somehow address ahead of time and prevent the notion that there's any bias here, right? So, but look at what the narrative is that Trump's creating around Jack Smith. I mean, he's going to call you names. He's going to call you a thug. He's going to call you corrupt, no matter what. This idea somehow that you can mollify the Trumpies and these, that they're not going to come after you, with torches if you somehow play more. We'll play it in your arena. No, it doesn't matter where you play it. If you're playing it at all, they're going to come after you and call you a liar and a cheat. So it just strikes me that it's more weak sauce out of the politics of it all. I hate to see it, David. I hate to see politics invade what should be a clear and cut system of justice.
Well, it's a very funny thing with Jack Smith, and being around the system on both sides and seeing what really goes on, I can say this is really anomalous. It's really strange. I mean, the prosecutors want to win fairly, but they want to win. And to take a 1 in 3 chance of getting the most Trump-friendly judge in America and getting a jury, whether it went to him or went to someone else, this is a jury in a pretty red place. And just to take that risk when the case belonged in Washington, D.C. Now, some people said there would have been a motion to change venue if it had been brought in Washington, D.C. I have these things all the time. I had a huge client, and basically everything he did was in Las Vegas. But he hired a lawyer in L.A., and he brought the records to his tax lawyer in L.A. That was deemed to support venue in Los Angeles and not in Las Vegas, where he lived and where he committed just about every act in the case. I was appealing that when I won the appeal on other grounds, so we'll never know how that would have come out. But one thing that I saw in my research, Mark, was that if a judge declines to transfer venue, there's not one case in America, at least as of the time I researched this about 10 years ago, where the defendant won. In other words, if the judge in Washington, D.C. had kept the case in Washington, D.C., Trump couldn't have cited one precedent in America for reversing that judge. So if the D.C. judge that they had selected in that case had actually sent the case down in Florida, okay, like you were just saying, it wasn't bending over backwards. Some judge ruled. Fine, we litigate that, which I believe they absolutely would have won, because everyone knew, including the valet, that there was a subpoena for these records. It was out of Washington, D.C. There was an investigation out of Washington, D.C. A top official from the Department of Justice had visited Trump at Mar-a-Lago from Washington, D.C. The agents on the case that were pursuing it were from Washington, D.C. The idea that document, and he allegedly took the documents from Washington, D.C. when he had no business taking any of them out of the White House in Washington, D.C. So the idea that there was not venue down there just doesn't make any sense at all. And as you say, the latest thing that I'm hearing is that the target letter does not include insurrection per se. Now, depending how those 3 statutes that are in the target letter are interpreted. Certainly some of the insurrection acts could be brought in there. But I mean, if there's ultimately an indictment of Trump and it does not mention what I consider this absolutely compelling evidence that everybody gets, they're going to get it more than the slates. They're going to get it more than some of the other things, which may be bad, but people are not going to get the slates in the various swing states and filing false records about whether you were or were not, an elector for Trump, or whether Trump had a right to have any electors for him or not. That's a little esoteric. It's a little subtle. There was a raid on the Capitol, as people saw on television. Trump sat on his behind for 3.5 hours and didn't tamp it down. He sent an incendiary message in the middle of it, knowing that they were trying to hang Pence and that Pence was hanging on by a thread with his Secret Service detail at the Capitol. He didn't tamp it down. He gave a speech which was incendiary and provocative, and he used the word peacefully. It cannot be that you can incite violence and give that kind of fiery speech. You have to fight for it, and then have Giuliani give an even worse incendiary speech, and all of it be on the program, and you're cured from a criminal indictment because you use the word peacefully. I mean, that's a joke. That's the old farce where, right, you use one word and it's magic. It's magic. It's my get out of jail free card. I magically used the word peacefully once. This is a farce if he doesn't bring the insurrection charge as a criminal indictment, either in a conspiracy or standalone as insurrection, seditious conspiracy against Trump. To me, I mean, there's obviously going to be an indictment because of the target letter, but Mark, that ought to be in there. That's bending over backwards if that's not in there.
Wow. Incendiary, yes. Ding word. There were some other ding words in there. Mollify, I think I used that was a ding word. The thing I wanted to ask you about, though, because you did just mention his name, is Rudy Giuliani. You know, he yet has we all thought the hammer would fall first on him. He was sort of out front, you know, but he has yet to see the hammer fall.
He may yet be a snitch. You know, he was the U.S. attorney in Manhattan, and I'm sure that he noticed, if he hasn't before or since, that, what do they say? Snitches get stitches, but not in this kind of case. Snitches may get, a way out. And he knows a lot about what Trump said. I mean, he can deliver chapter and verse what Trump said, what was going on. And they have a lot of records. If you remember, they raided his office. And so far as I know, they've never gotten like a suppression motion or made a successful motion that was an unlawful search. So I'm going into it with the idea that they have all of these records of Giuliani that they can use against Giuliani. Giuliani also had those 2 friends from over in Ukraine or someplace that got in a world of trouble. And they have nothing nice to say about Giuliani's participation in that. He lost his bar license in 1 or 2 places. He's been totally disgraced. I mean, from America's mayor, to this sort of Roy Cohn wannabe for Trump. So he's got a lot of reasons that, people don't want to spend the last years of their lives in jail. They just don't. And the party's really over. Let's assume the best case, Trump came back into power. What's in that for Giuliani? And in terms of getting a pardon and stuff like that, if Giuliani can get, a pass on these criminal charges by cooperating against Trump, I think that's where he's going to land.
The J6 charges that are included in this target letter, tell us how a target letter for indictment works. Do they include the charges, or do they just say you're the target of an indictment?
Well, we know from reporting that this letter does state 3 different charges. We don't know the details, at least so far, but we know one of them is obstruction of justice, tampering with a witness. Remember that Chrissy Hutchinson? It looked pretty clear from the J6 testimony in the House that she was the top aide to Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff. And she's got a world of valuable information. And, her lawyer was paid by the Trump forces. Then she was, at least according to her, she was basically told to massage her testimony in certain ways. If they can tie that into Trump, then Trump would be the target of the Chrissy Hutchinson tampering with her or obstructing justice in the investigation in Congress by, basically conspiring to have her testify falsely instead of testify truthfully. That's a very common federal charge. There may be other obstructions of justice too, other people that they tampered with. Remember, they gave admonitions I remember Lynn Cheney giving these admonitions after one of the hearings that, we have information that witnesses are being tampered with. That better come to an end right away. So that they may have evidence of that against Trump. Then they have just the general, conspiracies that they have. And then they have this deprivation of rights, Mark. And people are saying the deprivation of Mark's rights. It's well known that if you try to suppress people voting, that violates their civil rights. That would be a federal deprivation of civil rights if you went out and prevented people from voting. How about if you don't do that, but you don't count their votes? How about if you have a conspiracy not to count all the millions and millions of votes for Biden, especially in the swing states? And you did that by having these false slates of electors, by calling into Georgia and saying, find me another 11,000 votes. If that had been done, then all the people who voted for Biden and who should have had Georgia counted for Biden on account of how they had voted, Mark, those people would have had their votes not counted. And that would be the deprivation of the civil rights of all the people who voted in Georgia for Biden, and likewise in these other swing states. So that may be what the deprivation of rights is about, and people are speculating on that. But like I said, if there's not the insurrection full on, inciting the insurrection, and it doesn't give Trump any special rights. It doesn't involve anything. You basically go through the big lie. You go through how he tried to switch out the attorney general and put this nobody, vault him over the others because he would do Trump's bidding. And that came so close. Remember, they all had the screaming session at the White House, and everyone left at the Department of Justice above him said, we'll resign en masse if you vault this nobody over us. And so he can issue a letter saying there's been a huge amount of fraud in the presidential election. And then Trump has the famous line, just issue. I just want him to issue that letter, and then my Republican congressmen will take it from there. And then the slates thing is kind of interesting if we have a minute for that, because the slates thing, I just talked about it with Pat Thurston last night. But the slates thing was interesting. By November 15th, the election has been declared for Biden. Biden's the winner. What should have happened then was that there was a graceful transition, and Trump started to make plans to leave and let the new administration hit the ground running on January 20th. As people will recall, if they weren't thinking about the pandemic, which is what most of us were thinking about then, as people will recall, that did not happen. What actually happened is that Trump had the big lie. He went tooth and nail. He went to any lengths that he could to try to somehow, although he was the loser, somehow come out the winner. One of those was he tried to persuade all these governors and voting authorities to call the vote for him. And to their credit, even Republican governors in swing states were not going to go that far to say that, Trump lost our state by 20,000 votes, but I'm just going to say 25,000 votes were not cast properly. There was misconduct. I have no evidence of it, but I'm going to declare it. I'm a Republican. I'm going to help a Republican. Therefore, Trump won Georgia. Trump won Pennsylvania. Trump won Michigan or Wisconsin. None of those governors, even if they were Republicans, were willing to do that. So then the follow-up plan was to go to the state legislatures and say to them, hey, you guys are Republicans. I know you gave the authority to the governor and to the election boards. Take it back. And you, the state legislatures, declare Trump the winner. No state legislature would do that. So December 14th came the day that the electors had to be for Biden or for Trump, and they were all for Biden enough to win the election for Biden. So that's when they concocted this plan with no authority from any state legislature, no authority from any governor, for these real Trump stalwarts in these swing states to go sign declarations that said, I am the dual. It's like, what's my line? I am the real elector. And then the idea was to confuse the issue so much that there would be these sworn declarations, I am the elector, that the vice president would say, oh my God, on January 6th at the session, it's all so confusing. Who can figure it out? You have this slate that says they're the real electors, this other slate that says they're the electors. You know what? There was so much fraud in this election. I have this letter from this new attorney general that we put in there. I've got the Republican congressman all screaming fraud, fraud, fraud. I've got this Senator Johnson running over to the vice president, trying to give him these crazy lists of false electors from Wisconsin and Michigan. You know what? I'm just going to declare these false electors to be the real electors. I'm going to count their votes. And January 6th, I, the vice president, declare Trump the winner. That was really what the dream plan was. And there's a bunch of conspirators behind that. They think that it was this fellow Kenneth Cheesebro from the Midwest. It was Professor John Eastman, who was suggested as a target by the January 6th committee as a criminal target, and some others who did basically a format, a pattern. There were 7 states, and they all got the same declarations that these false electors should file. And in Michigan, there's a Democratic attorney general who's taken this very seriously, and she's turned around and indicted 16 of these false electors for felony charges. And one of their lawyers said, "Why is my old client being indicted? Why isn't Trump being indicted?" Good question. Maybe the client would like to give us some information why Trump really is the one who ought to be indicted. I think they're going to try to flip some of those 16 and work up the channel. And
well, those are state charges, though, right? Those are not. But you're saying they could become federal?
Yes, and that raises this whole issue, Mark, of someone like a former president being charged in a state. We have a former president being charged in the state of New York, not the greatest charge in the whole bundle. That's the former
that's the
current porn star, the hush money payments.
Right.
But there's no reason why, if they flipped and they said, okay, Giuliani told me to do this. He sent me these pattern things. I was told to sign this, even though I wasn't designated by anybody as an elector. And then, you flip one of those people like Cheesebro or Eastman. Eastman doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in jail either.
He's already been disgraced and disbarred, I think.
So there's a lot of people that they could flip in this case. The idea that you can't flip people in this case because they're all waiting around for their pardon from Trump. Some are, some aren't. But I think if these prosecutors are aggressive, and the last thing I want to say is that although that charge is going forward in Georgia and the charge just went forward in Michigan, there's no reason why that couldn't be part of the whole federal indictment that's coming too. And that's not the end of the world either. They're sort of overlapping. We criminal defense attorneys don't like that. We say that there shouldn't be both state and federal charges. They should pick one or the other. But it's just a judgment call. It's a policy. It's not something that we can go to a court and say, we have a right to make the government pick state or federal. They can pick both state and federal. You remember the Rodney King cops. That could be both a federal and state crime. Many things can be both a federal and state crime. And this stuff sounds like it could be federal as well as being brought forward in Virginia, in Michigan, and in Georgia by Fani Willis.
So now we're over. So just super briefly, tell me the calendar. Any of this stuff, again, just remind us. Any of this stuff makes it before there's so many of these sperms swimming up to try to fertilize. Do any of them actually get to the egg before the election or not?
In the Southern District of Florida, I just don't see any way. This other case will be brought I believe in about a week or two in Washington, D.C., depending on the judge they get and how much the judge is willing to push things. And if there aren't national security documents issues in the case, the Federal Speedy Trial Act says 70 days. I suppose the only hope of one of these cases really getting to trial is that Washington, D.C. case doesn't involve national security documents, doesn't have all those huge potential obstacles and delays over national security documents. That one could actually go at the same time, even if Trump were somehow found guilty in that case. The jury would find him guilty, then he wouldn't be sentenced for 3 months after that. The reality is that would not bar him from running. And this idea that he'd be so tied up in court, I've said this before, the defendant in a criminal case federally just has to show up for the arraignment. After that, the defendant himself or herself can waive appearance and just have the lawyers. So he could be at his rallies all the time that his court proceedings were going on. You even can waive your appearance during a trial. So I guess that's the only one that I think might actually go. They're claiming that the one in New York might go. And my last thought on this, they might let the New York one go in state court if it's weak enough. So Trump could say, see, all of this, it's all, what does he call it again? It's all a witch hunt. And I beat the wicked witch of New York City on the old, hush money payment thing. And I destroyed Michael Cohen on the stand, and they're all Michael Cohens, all the people who are testifying against me. But I don't think that's going to happen either. I think that one will also get delayed. So I've said this a million times, Mark. I'll say it again. Don't wait for the magic way to get rid of Trump. None of these lawsuits is going to get rid of Trump. Not before, not now. Organize, vote, beat him in 2024. You don't want Trump again.
So generous to spend time with us on Thursdays. He also sprinkles his time across other media outlets. Seen him on Fox, hear him with Pat Thurston on KCBS and KNX Radio in Los Angeles. But we love having you as a resource here regularly on Thursdays. And we look forward to next week as well. David Katz, everybody. Thanks, David.
If you're in London, England, you can catch me on the radio in the morning.
The new David Katz morning show in London, everybody. I love it. Who knew? They have processes.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Yes. Has David Katz received the Rod of Equity and Mercy, Kim, or not?
I have.
Oh, you have received it. Okay, good.
I was sitting in front of my pillow. Wait, I was sitting in front of my pillow, Mark.
There you go. Love the pillow. Love the merch. Come on, David Katz. All right, we'll see you next week, my friend. Really, really great. All right, David Katz, everyone.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Love having David Katz by. Always great. Thank you for... What's that? What's the problem?
I said he's great.
No, he is great, too.
Yeah.
Smash the like button for David Katz. And with your iron rod, just give us a thumbs up. Costs you nothing and does help us, apparently, in the YouTube universe. Also, please share this show, if you can, on Facebook or wherever you do your social media. It helps expand our footprint a bit. Can we do a mini news before Belinda? I'd like to get just a news update, and then it's the plan.
Yeah, we can do that. I can read. Here's my plan. I'm going to read the first sentence of each story. You're not going to get the full story, but you're going to get something.
I'm not sure that
not a good plan.
I would have liked to discuss that plan.
Okay,
it's not really about the time. It's just maybe, yeah. All right, well, you do what you want. You're the expert. Right. It's your game. But I would try to give us a real feel for things, and then
that could be kind of funny. No.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, I won't read just the first sentence of this one because it's pretty sad. Federal officials investigating claims that illegal immigrants are being mistreated along the Texas border with Mexico. The reports come from an email written by a state trooper working as a medic who said they're being told to deny water to asylum seekers and to push them back into the Rio Grande. Texas's Republican governor released a joint statement with other high-ranking state officials saying no orders or directions have been given under Operation Lone Star that would compromise the lives of those attempting to cross the border illegally. President Biden is pushing his Bidenomics plan, Bidenomics, in Philadelphia today. He touted.
How does that work?
Yeah, he's talking about the decreases in inflation growth and the record low unemployment numbers as well. So despite some positive economic data, 79% of Americans say the economy is just fair or poor. That according to the latest CNBC poll. So President Biden is trying to say, Bidenomics means the economy is actually doing pretty well. I misspoke the other day and have to correct myself. This man who ran into the demilitarized zone in the Koreas, he was headed home to the U.S. when he then turned around and made a run for it.
What? And he did what? I'm so sorry.
He was headed back to the United States when he turned around, joined a tourist group, and then headed across the border.
Right.
So
you had said that that they apprehended him, but they actually hadn't.
Yeah, well, the whereabouts.
He was apprehended by the North Koreans, right?
That's right. Yeah, he's not headed home. No, my bad. I'm sorry. The whereabouts of this American soldier who crossed into North Korea is still unknown to the White House. Officials today saying the administration working to figure out what happened to Private Travis King. He was facing disciplinary action and was being sent home, but instead of getting on his flight, joined a civilian tour of the DMZ and ran into North Korea. Cleanup is underway. Here's a picture of the Pfizer plant in North Carolina. Some damage there because they had an EF3 tornado. It tore through the region. 89 homes and building structures damaged, 16 people injured, happened just east of Raleigh. 150 mile per hour winds in this twister, and it traveled for about 20 miles. The Federal Reserve is launching its own instant money transfer service. It's called FedNow. It allows individuals and businesses to send and receive payments within seconds, and it will be available 24/7. The whole thing going on with Netflix, they've recently added 6 million paid subscribers amid the crackdown on password sharing. They said Wednesday those numbers came during the 3 months ending in June. So whatever they're doing is meaning that they're getting a little bit more, a few more subscribers, I guess, on the service.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't sharing, so they got to pony up with their own subscription, I guess.
I thought this was an interesting story about hybrid and remote workers trying to leave the house right as they close up their laptops. They're now fueling a shift to early bird prime time. Restaurants are now seating 10% of diners between 2 and 5 p.m. That's up from 5% in 2019, according to Yelp. Uber trips restaurants in the 4 p.m. hour have increased nearly 10% since 2019, while rides to restaurants after 8 p.m. are down 9%. So a lot of people may be doing the early thing. Yeah. And lastly, it is indeed Barbenheimer Day. The two highly anticipated blockbusters, Barbie and Oppenheimer, hit theaters tonight. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, nice job. I liked it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
You people are crazy.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
I cannot believe it.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
Supposing you brought the light inside the body.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
Yeah, we're all about it. Glad you could be part of it. It is our Thursday show. Thursdays, we address a bunch of things in addition to the law, which we did with David Katz, in addition to politics, which we did in the last hour with Alex Bolton from The Hill, and in addition to the controversy around AI, which we addressed alongside the other SAG-AFTRA issues that we talked about at the beginning of the hour with Erik Passoja, right? That's how he says his last name.
Passoja, yeah.
Passoja, sorry. We get to the planet, and we do it in a segment we call It's the Planet, Stupid.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet, stupid.
No. It's the planet, stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet, Stupid, back from New Zealand, Belinda Weymouth. Hello, Belinda.
Welcome. Hello. Hi there. It's good to be back.
What's it like in New Zealand right now? It's incredibly hot, I would guess. Or no, it's winter there, right?
Yeah, it's winter, so the temperature was lovely. It's been unbelievably wet. You know, I've talked about this on the show. They had a cyclone hit where my family in Hawke's Bay live back in February. Unbelievable rain. In January, 4 people died in the rains and the floods in Auckland, our biggest city. They're being really inundated with weather, and they're sitting in this pocket of very hot ocean water, a little bit like Florida and some other places in the world. So there's a lot going on everywhere.
Yeah, so that feeds, your point is that feeds cyclones and cyclone development and severe weather.
It's like you and I have
talked about,
weather is so complicated and there are so many factors, but when you think about, all the high pressure systems that head towards the equator, which is a low pressure system with hot equatorial waters, I look at New Zealand and go, oh, could sitting in this really hot ocean water be making you a magnet for these weather systems? I mean, it's complicated and there's so much going on. I mean, the news right now about the planet and the weather is just, it's game on, it's full on.
Well, it's complicated and it's not complicated. I mean, there's weather is basically energy transfer. And so when you talk about sea surface temperatures and warming of the ocean currents, it's a simple transfer of energy from the ocean to the atmosphere. And that's what cyclones are. That's what, cyclones, which are hurricanes, are, and tropical weather. That's the Earth desperately trying to balance all of this energy. And you mentioned the ocean. I saw this piece about how the ocean is the new area. I say new. This has been done a little bit to this point, but now there is really an aggressive move to exploit the ocean floor and all the minerals and all the things, resources, if you want to think of it that way, that are there on the ocean floor. And in so doing, they are disturbing ecosystems there. These are in the depths of the ocean that haven't seen any kind of disruption. There's nothing stirring up that sediment prior to this kind of development on the ocean floor. And it is dramatically going to change and perhaps eliminate a lot of these species that live there on the ocean's floor.
Yes, and it's, they're talking about, the mining companies and the people who want to invest in these projects are talking about, we need the copper and the lithium, but it's not actually a given that there aren't enough terrestrial sources of these metals. And, so to say we have to go, down into the sort of abyssal level, the benthic ocean, they're talking about going 4 miles down. This is, the submersible that just, imploded at 2 miles down. This is 4 miles down. And I talk about this a lot with the ocean. It covers 71% of the earth. It provides 7 out of every 10 breaths of oxygen that we human beings need to survive. 95% of the biodiversity on the planet is in the ocean. There is more plankton by biomass than there are rainforests, which is, hard to get your mind around. And the crazy thing is we've only really explored 5% of the ecosystems and the ocean. And to have these mining companies and their investors think the ocean floor mining is so great and be promoting it this way because, there are no environmental issues, they're saying, because no one lives there. Well, there are species that live there. And as we know, ecosystems are delicate fabrics. And, you pull out a thread, you destroy a thread at the bottom, or a little thread that seems insignificant because it's some tiny creature that can't see, but, has a sort of a light and scurries around on that deep, deep ocean floor. What will wiping out that species do? So, to me, it seems crazy. And what's happening is, we've got the International Seabed Authority meeting in Jamaica right now to work out what the steps forward need to be, what the regulations are that we need to put in place. But we've got these mining companies just champing at the bit, ready to go. Yes, they've had some licenses for exploration, but they want to get that down there and start, hoovering up the nodules.
That's right. Yeah. It's a gold rush. Exactly. Here is Douglas Macaulay, a professor of ocean science at the University of California at Santa Barbara, says, we don't know what's down there. We don't know the ecosystems. We don't know the damage that could be done. No sunlight ever reaches these zones that Belinda's talking about. And temperatures never rise above 39 degrees. But even at those depths, the ocean floor teems with life. It's slow growing and often small, but it is there. It's what you're saying, Belinda. And this is the quote that I thought was interesting. Life down there operates like it's on a different planet. The environment is so cold and dark, the clock of life ticks more slowly. Some of the organisms that have been documented are among the oldest on the planet, including coral that are more than 4,000 years old. And you just see this all being destroyed in an instant as these mining companies begin, as I say, this rush to exploit resources on the ocean floor. That's deep sea mining that they do. What is the timetable on it? They're ready to go, as you say. They're anxious to get started right away. Will this meeting to which you refer in Jamaica, will that slow them at all? What's the timetable?
Well, the problem with the meeting is, you've got a handful of countries saying, hey, we need to slow down. France, Germany, New Zealand, other smaller Pacific Island nations saying, we really need to do the research. We really need to know what's at stake, how much damage could be done. And then you've got other countries who are really champing at the bit. And 2 years ago, Nauru, which is a small Pacific Island country, put the ISA on notice saying, we're going to start deep sea mining in 2 years. So you've got to come up with regulations in a 2-year time period. That was actually just over 2 years ago. And that's what they call the sort of nuclear option, that, a country or a mining company could play with the International Seabed Authority. As we know, international sort of, agreements are really fraught. And to get, enough of the countries, there are 167 countries signed on, to the ISA. Of course, not the United States. We're in Jamaica right now as, observer at the meeting, but we didn't want to be, hindered by any international body telling us, no, you can't do this, or so we're not a member, which is really a pity because obviously the US has huge clout. So we're there as an observer. And the problem, with all these things, it's exactly what mining companies and fossil fuel companies do, with terrestrial sites and with their business ambitions terrestrially, is that they put out all this propaganda. I mean, to say that there are no lives down there and it's not going to matter and we can, go ahead and we can do it safely and we can just go in and sort of extract, very carefully, we can use AI and robots to go down and just work out the little bits that we should take off the ocean floor, but they're going to have all these trails of cables with power to power them. I mean, it's going to be like an enormous vacuum cleaner on the ocean floor. And we've already done terrible damage to much less deep ocean floor with dredging, which is, basically these huge, metal I don't know how to, they're sort of like graders that just go across the bottom of the ocean floor to get scallops and other things that grow in the ocean floor, and they just destroy everything. So, and, then when you look at what happened to that submersible, this is even deeper. So all the things that could go wrong, equipment that could, implode down there and just be left as debris. I also, right now there is so much in the news about just how beleaguered the oceans are. I mean, look at the temperatures off Florida the other day. They measured 92 degrees, for ocean water temperature. That's crazy. We've got dead fish being washed ashore on the shores in New Zealand because of the hot water down there. We had seals attacking surfers here at Venice Beach in Southern California and basically coming ashore to die. I mean, there's so much going wrong right now with the ocean, which, as I am going to say just one more time, life on Earth really depends on a healthy ocean. As we were talking about at the, top of the show, it regulates our weather. It's a huge source of food, for billions of people on the planet. I think we have to be very careful about the ocean right now. And we have to transition to renewables. There are all these things that have to happen by 2030, and one of them is halving our emissions. And we're not on target to do that. And look at what's happening to the weather and the oceans with how hot we already are. We've got 7 years to halve emissions. So we need to switch to renewables, but do we need the copper and the lithium in the ocean, on the ocean floor? I don't think so. I think we need to exhaust terrestrial supplies of it first.
I think that's a great point, and I hadn't heard it before, that the idea somehow that you need to exploit the ocean may not be the either most cost-efficient one or time-effective one. So, I think we treat the ocean like an open sewer. And then when it's time to exploit it, we get into, this kind of thing with the deep sea mining without regard to the ecosystems and the fragile habitats that are down there. And then you add to that the sort of general damage that's being done as a result of fossil fuel and warming, and you end up with the kind of ocean temperatures to which you've referred as well. It's really a scary lot. I was going to tell you about this other story that I saw, and it's how they're using AI to monitor orphan elephants in Botswana, and you see the power of AI. Here it is, to perhaps restore certain species. They're talking about the woolly mammoth and the notion that this is sort of, I read it kind of as mad scientist, but I wanted to get your take on it just generally without even, I know I kind of pop it on you, but I like that they're monitoring the elephant population with AI, although I think that can be done by a lot of nefarious forces and, evil forces, poachers, etc. But reintroducing elephants into the wild and knowing the social hierarchies of the elephants, which is complicated, that can be aided perhaps by AI. I'm wondering if there's any part, even stepping back from just that one story, of the overall environmental projects that you're aware of that actually can be helped by AI. I mean, can we use this scary technology that also has a lot of good in it to help in some way get us back toward magnetic north on helping the planet and helping the species on the planet?
Look, if we could use AI solely for conservation efforts and helping us with climate change, what an amazing use of AI that would be. And the AI with these orphaned elephants is to work out, how can you get them back living in the wild? Because elephants have such a hierarchical structure. And when an orphaned elephant, they just can't be folded in with a group of elephants that have, grown up and lived together, because they're seen as strangers and they haven't been raised by a mother. They've been raised by humans. I just have to say this thing I loved, because when I first saw the headline, I was like, oh, this is cool. Oh, the woolly mammoth, it's those people. So this idea of bringing back the woolly mammoth, I just have to talk about this because there are all these groups that are putting millions of dollars into it. And I interviewed Stuart Brand quite a few years ago. He's one of the original Merry Pranksters, and he has a company or a nonprofit called Revive and Restore. They have successfully cloned a black-footed ferret from a wild ferret that was cryopreserved, in ice in 1988. But Stuart is really into bringing back the woolly mammoth. And of course, they would use, genetic material from Asian elephants. And they, when I said to him, like, this is a lot of, millions of dollars, all these, resources and money to go into this. And his answer was, well, we would have the Arctic tundra again, and it would be a carbon sink with the mammoths up there. Yes, that is the picture I used in the story I wrote when I interviewed Stuart, actually. But here's just a little piece of scientific data to add into this mix and to show how kind of far-fetched I think it is. There are 1.4 million genetic mutations separating that mammoth of 4,000 years ago to the current Asian elephant. And so what, skeptics of this idea, are saying is that gene splicing to get, the genetic material of that mammoth to work with an Asian elephant, that would be a mammoth, pardon the pun, undertaking in and of itself. So to come back to the AI, I love the idea of AI to conserve populations that are on the planet right now. And if we could help the elephants, yes, they so need it. And we will be so sad if we let those populations go extinct. But it's just interesting to me that then these companies that want to, bring the woolly mammoth kind of jump on and say, okay, we'll help fund it, because we want to see how you reintroduce these Asian orphan elephants into the wild, because that will help us when we get our mammoth, reborn, and we'll be able to reintroduce it into the wild. And I'm kind of like, okay, that's really extrapolating. And my last point would be, it's just, they're so gorgeous. But the, the thing I say over and over again, I know I sound like a broken record, but, we need to be putting all our resources, I think, and our research and all these big scientific brains into helping us with our emissions and getting right-sized on this planet. This is our one home. And we're heading into this fiery, flooded future. I mean, they're talking about, there was news today about Greenland and about the last time, less than half a million years ago, where there was no ice there. It was Arctic tundra. The sea level was between 5 and 18 feet higher than it is now. I mean, we really need to stop that happening. And the temperatures were about what we're heading to right now, as far as how much hotter the planet was. We're heading to those temperatures again. So that's bye-bye 1 mile thick of ice, on top of Greenland.
And you've talked about what happens when a lot of the ice and the permafrost melts. I mean, it's a grim future. So Merry Christmas, everybody. This
yes, sorry, guys. That's not my brand normally.
Yeah, great to have you back with grim news. Belinda, welcome back, though. Thank you for always being here with. Also, I appreciated the kind of recalibrating the notions about exploiting minerals on the seafloor. I didn't, that's obviously an emerging story, and so we'll watch it along with these others too. Thanks so much, and congratulations. I think you're celebrating an anniversary of sorts, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm in remission, and I'm coming up on 2 years from when I diagnosed. I'm doing really well, so I'm super happy.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Pretty great. Congratulations. All right, well, we love you here, and thank you. Belinda Weymouth, everybody. That's it.
More. It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, she's great. Good to have her back. Her and her accent. Congratulations, Belinda, says Trevor. By the way, Trevor, he is so good about grabbing drops for me. And I believe he did say, Mark, I heard the end of yesterday's show, very delayed. Yes, I did send you Kim's About to Pop drop right after you asked Tony for it. Yeah.
Oh, so he's throwing me under the bus here?
No. He's just saying, I did it. I'll throw you under the bus. I ask Tony for stuff all the time, and he doesn't do it. All right.
Next week.
But I will say this, Tony is stepping up today because he is Comic-Con.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, very, very cool. But here...
This thing is ready to pop, people.
Yeah, that's right.
This thing is ready to pop, people.
That's from Trevor in Concord. He pulled that off the show.
This thing is ready to pop, people.
I think you were talking about the lottery, that it had reached a critical... But that's a good drop because, again, it's versatile.
This thing is ready to pop, people.
Yeah.
I wish I hadn't smacked my microphone, but okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Trevor.
Very good, Trevor.
$8.10 too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
I see what you did there.
Right.
This thing is ready to pop.
It's ready to pop. We are ready to pop, though. That's anything else I need to do today? Remind you that Chad, thank you for a quick super sticker and a big shout out. Chad, who threw us a $5. Thank you, everybody. Please share our show if you can. Always good to share the show. We trying to expand our footprint, and the more you share it, the better it is. Well, we had a lot going on today, everybody. I'll be honest with you. We had a lot going on.
It was a busy little show.
It was. I think there was some good stuff in there. Tony, thank you again for beaming in from Comic-Con.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. And Kim will be found now over on the Nikki Maduro channel. The Nikki Maduro show starts now as well. Tomorrow, it is a Friday, so we'll do Friday Fabulous Florida. Avila joins along with Michael Shore probably on politics. Avila will definitely be here. Shore sometime covering stuff, so we never know. And Michael Snyder, it's a big weekend at the movies. We'll talk about Oppenheimer and more. Have a good night and a good day, everybody. And until tomorrow.
I'm Shello Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you for supporting us all the ways you do. Truly appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Yes, out of time. So, bye-bye.